Have you been personally affected by climate change? Have you been forced to change your lifestyle or traditions because of climate change? Probably not. But the people of Tuvalu, an island in the Pacific, and Canuck, a town in Greenland, have. Why is this? Why are they experiencing much worse effects in Greenland, whereas most of us in the United States only see this happening in the media and not firsthand? And how is it fair that they are experiencing the worst repercussions of climate change when they contribute the least to it? Find out in this episode of our Climate Justice mini-series. Remember to smash that like button and subscribe to Planet Tiendo for more on climate justice. So, let's get to it. Why is Greenland and the Arctic disproportionately affected by climate change? In other words, why is there more warming and thus melting happening in these areas? This is because of something called a positive feedback loop, which causes more warming and ice melting. A feedback loop is a circular path in a system where the output participates in the control of the system, which can reduce or increase the results of that process path. They're called negative and positive feedback loops, respectively. For example, ice is a bright and reflective surface, which does a great job at reflecting the sun's rays back into space. This reflectiveness is called albedo and is very important in climatic feedback loops. A higher albedo means that more rays are being reflected back to space. If these rays are not reflected, Earth's surface would absorb it instead, causing the Earth to warm. So, let's examine this positive feedback loop. As climate change warms the Arctic, ice begins to melt, reducing Earth's albedo. Since the albedo is reduced, Earth begins absorbing more radiation, which causes more warming and thus even more ice melting. This positive reinforcement of ice melting and lowering albedo is what causes the Arctic to warm more than other parts of the Earth. This is happening now. In early February of last year, the Pine Island Glacier in Antarctica calved, or broke apart. The berg was about 3 times the size of the city of San Francisco. That's 120 square miles. Now, how does this positive feedback loop affect Greenland? Well, 80% of its surface is covered with ice. So as the Earth's average temperature rises, the ice there begins to melt and reduces the reflective white surface with it. This feedback creates a number of issues, including rising sea levels and loss of habitat for animals and humans inhabiting these immediate areas. The documentary Tuvalu gives an example of the people hit hardest by climate change, specifically due to the ice melting albedo feedback we just discussed. Canuck, better known as Thule, is a town in Greenland considered one of the most northerly inhabited places on Earth. The Inuits that live there have a rich culture with hunting and gathering practices that shape their daily lives. Inuits provide for their families by hunting for their food, hunting mainly for seals while traveling across ice caps and the ocean. Receding ice caps threaten to bring this lifestyle to an end, since their sleds and sled dogs won't be able to cross melting ice caps and glaciers. Tuvalu, an island nation in the Pacific, is also experiencing the repercussions of climate change. Although these two locations are about 20,000 kilometers apart, they are deeply connected. Tuvalu's islands are around 3 meters above sea level, and 2 of the 9 of them are on the verge of inundation because of rising sea levels, which we know is due to the melting ice. With sea level rising at an average of 12 millimeters a year, the people of Tuvalu face either constant flooding and infrastructure issues, or permanent relocation. Considering the lifestyles that people in Canuck and Tuvalu have, it's safe to say that their carbon footprint is very low. Tuvalu's annual CO2 emissions per person were less than 1 ton, while in the US they amounted to 16.5 tons of CO2 emitted per capita. So, is it fair that these people are feeling the repercussions of climate change more than myself or others? That's where climate justice comes in. Global warming is a social and political issue, and we need to place the responsibility on those that have created the problem and relieve those not responsible that are suffering from the repercussions of climate change. It seems pretty logical. Why would the people of Canuck and Tuvalu have to alter their daily lives due to climate change when they are the least responsible for it? Climate justice would call for action to be taken to prevent or repair the damage climate change has caused to Inuits and Native Islanders, since they don't have all the resources to do so themselves. But what can or should be done to repair this damage? Some people suggest relocating the populations to a place where they would not be affected. But this means relocating people from their native and ancestral land. So, is this really a fair solution? Probably not. Perhaps a better solution would be to include the Islanders and Inuits in political decisions that would affect them. Find out in one of our videos how well we are faring on fixing the political side, as we take a look at the international negotiations around climate change and the voices they allow to be heard. Thanks for watching and stay tuned.